This is The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel. Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Dave.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. This is a crazy cool show today. This is one that I'm
really
very,
exciting.
very excited about.
This is a high-class episode.
Yeah, I think this is a watershed for us. I think people will talk about stuff dreams are made of before this show and after this show. I think that's what the kids will be talking about. So yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's just jump into it because it's a big show. What's new in props, as they say, and you've got something to tell me.
I do. Yeah. I mean, you've known about this for a while, but I finally got it. Together. It was a bit of doing. It this process kind of began this summer. It's as you probably know from the download, it's a podcast about museums and museumy things, and it's a little. We're going to stick our pinkies out this episode. It's a little higher class. I purchased a piece of artwork this summer, and I was really excited to get it. It's an artist who I've long adored and loved, and actually, thanks very much to mutual friend and friend of the podcast, Kelvin Mao, got to know the artist at Comic-Con, and we became friendly and hit it off. His name is Gary Gianni. He is a wonderful fine artist, like true fine artist, in the kind of old school sense, like
gorgeous painter. I know him originally from comic book work,
comic illustrator,
but a rich sort of, I think illustration art is almost sort of what I think of when I think of him, but obviously pen and ink and paint, but just a wonderful illustrator and a true love of the pulp stuff that I know obviously you lean in towards. Yeah.
Yes. And I, evokes the style of, Frazetta and Steranko and things, but without aping any of it. It's definitely his own style, but it feels like a 100-year-old painting when you see it. And Gary is, I knew Gary from a million years ago just as a fan of his Conan work, and he had done a ton of these Conan pieces. There were a series of Del Rey kind of recollections of the Robert E. Howard stories.
They were these cool, like high-end sort of like, right? Are they like limited, or there's a limited edition version?
There's
of them,
a limited edition
really
version.
Gorgeous, like
the Del Rey was the sort of mass paperback, and then Wandering Star, which was this little, they're like Subterranean Press, and these the micro publisher that do these, great with the little leafing and the thing. So this is it's a Conan painting. Everybody's gonna be shocked. Fall off your chairs, everybody. And it was the cover. It was my favorite cover of his series of these. Again, Del Rey, the sort of paperback. And then the Wandering Star was a trilogy, sort of 3 volumes of Conan, and there were 3 artists, and each one of them took a volume and did cover and then interior pieces. Gary is volume 2, and this is his cover piece it's a full painting to volume 2. We'll post it on the feed. It is a classic sort of Frazettian Conan image of the square cut, haircut. He's in chains and he's murdering a bunch of Roman troops with his bloody sword. And it's just amazing. And it's gigantic. It's 30 by 40, not even in the frame. So the frame makes it even bigger. It's like a big screen TV. It's wonderful. And I just picked it. I hadn't even seen the painting because I did the deal with him. He's in the US. And then I sent somebody to his house to collect it and crate it and send it over here. And basically it showed up in a proper crate. So I just had basically my production office just pick it up and take it right to the framer because I didn't want it to be, it's an exposed canvas.
Ruin it, yeah.
Right. So I just here you go, and they immediately put it into the frame in the framing process because it was I ordered a very custom fancy gilded frame, which you'll also see because it's all done. It took all like 6 weeks.
I'm going to jump in here and just say I'm very proud of the frame because I definitely got to add my 2 cents.
You consulted. Yeah. You helped curate the exhibit.
I said big and gold. I said frame it like it's like a medieval painting. Yeah,
it is. And you did, chunky, which is fantastic. Chunky as hell. Yeah. So now what I need you to do
is
phone
the time for a subtle, thin black, not with a very
gallery frame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, invisible frame. So now I need you to phone up Mrs. Ryan Condell, Dave, and convince her that this is a suitable piece of artwork to hang proudly in the halls.
There's a bathroom in the basement that I think is going to be good for you and Conan. Yeah.
But the thing that I love about it is like she's very cool about sort of stuff being in the house and around. But this was sort of, it's like bloody Conan like murdering Roman troops, and she was like, "Do we really have to have that in the house in the sort of living space? Because I don't have room for it in the office. It's just it doesn't fit in here." And then I brought it home, and she's like, "Actually, that's really cool."
Okay, all right, there you go.
So I think we're getting there, and I have a pitch for where it can go, and it's out of light, but it's in the living area, and because I think we have our house, the new house is very modern, so there's big tall ceilings, so just a big piece of artwork like that really goes really well out in the kind of hallways living space. So I'm going to work on that. So we'll have an update in a future episode as to where it lands. But very, very proud to have it. I've always wanted a proper really Gary piece, and
he did a crap load of stuff for George Martin, right? He's done a whole bunch of Game of Thrones stuff.
Buried the lead a bit. So the reason that I met him was because Gary is George's favorite illustrator of Westeros. So if George needs, like, one of George's favorite depictions of the Iron Throne, his crazy Iron Throne, which is
very
3 stories tall and winding steps and everything up to it, was a Gary illustration. And Gary did the illustrations, these full paintings for his limited edition of Fire and Blood, the book that House of the Dragon was based on, that Subterranean Press did, and there's a big gatefold wraparound cover of the Doom of Valyria and Daenerys the Dreamer, the Targaryen that foresaw the Doom and saved the family from the Doom, and that's the reason the Targaryens survived and the dragon survived and everything, because she got them out of there before Vesuvius went. And it's just glorious. So he did all of those paintings, the interiors for it, and that was my. Does
George own some originals? Do we know that? He does.
Yeah. My very favorite one that Gary ever painted, George owns, and it's great. It's Ned having discovered needle, and Arya is like doing the sort of, it's like a Rockwell painting where Arya's sort of like doing the staring at her,
Pop, kind of
standing in her shoes, and like you could totally see it as a Saturday Evening Post cover. It's really wonderful, and but George has that and a bunch of others, and but he's just a great guy and has become a really good friend. And he did, when I was pitching House of the Dragon, I actually conscripted him to do a scene from my pilot as a pen and ink drawing to show to HBO as sort of a proof of concept, bring the thing to life.
I don't think you ever told me that.
Oh yeah, I have it in a frame, so I'll send that to you. We'll post it on the feed too. If you remember it, it's incredible how.
So he was your Macquarie.
Yes. So yes, and I should have had him do a whole series and whatever, but he did the funeral from the pilot where Rhaenyra's mother is burned by the dragon after the baby dies and she dies, and it's a depiction of that, and it's from when I initially developed the pilot, Rhaenyra was much younger, so it's a much younger version of Rhaenyra, but it's great, you'll see it, but it really evokes that scene. It's the pyre is up on a high hill and the dragon is on the hill with the pyre and all the crowd is gathered around. It's kind of amazing how sort of the film came to life. And so that was the first piece of concept artwork ever done for House of the Dragon. That was a Gary Gianni original from like 4 years ago, and now I have this, and it's kind of brought the whole thing full circle. But that was the icebreaker for how I walked in and met Gary, because I was able to go up to him and say, "Hey, I'm working with George," and he was like, "Oh, that's wonderful. Come sit behind the booth." And he just sat and told us stories. One of his first illustration jobs, I think I told you this offline at some other point, but he was the courtroom illustrator in like the Chicago court system, and he did the courtroom illustrations for the John Wayne Gacy trial.
Oh, that's pretty wonderful.
And Gacy was like an artist. So he was like really interested in what Gary was
the depiction was
doing, and sort of doing the, "Hey, I drew one too. What do you think of my stuff?" And this was in the 70s. Like Gary was a very young man at that time, and he's just like, it was just such a chilling experience. It almost drove him away from art because it was just such a chilling experience being in the room with evil like that and whatever. But anyway, the Gary Gianni podcast. But we should have him on at some point because he's a really great, fascinating guy, and he's worked in book illustration, comic illustration forever.
Yeah, he definitely sort of overlaps a bunch of these fields, including, I think, movie pre-production stuff. So he's probably got a couple of stories. Yeah, but really just wonderful, talented guy. That's excellent. I love the painting. It's incredible. I love how it all came out. I look forward to where it gets hung, but I'm very excited.
I'll stay tuned.
Yeah.
So what's new in props for you, Dave?
My what's new in props has been a little bit of nothing too exciting. The ongoing the apartment the saga continues. Just been dealing with insurance people and condo rules and all of that kind of stuff. And then of course things keep showing up. These are things I purchased a while back. So for example,
it was a pre-order.
No, but that's exactly it. But it's got to like there will be a stop. I definitely have stopped, but these things that are showing up just because. And obviously there's all these new catalogs and whatnot. So that's all ongoing. But the one exciting thing that I finally got to do, which has been kind of killing me, is I finally, after all these years, got over to the Academy Museum. We did it Thanksgiving week, basically the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, first thing in the morning, right at 10 a.m. I went, took the family. We went, met with some friends of ours, a woman and her daughter, and we all went to the museum and did it. I mean, we were there from 10 in the morning till into the afternoon. To the point, the kids were starving, and it wasn't necessarily, it was very fun being with sort of my family. And then also at a certain point, it was just there was the moment, of course, where the security guard came over and had to, ask my daughter to stop using flash photos, which she wasn't doing of any artifacts or props. She was taking pictures of her brother to annoy him to death. But it was really, really cool. We kind of went top to bottom. Our good friend Barbara Turman was really nice enough to give a little tour to us, which was great. And she's wonderful. Got to go down to the basement and see our names. That's down in the lower area. There's a donor wall where our names are there.
You found us?
Pictures up of that. I found us.
Thank you.
Not alphabetical, which is very confusing to me. Just sort of, I think, in order, but of whatever. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think a good third to a quarter of this very podcast is just Dave going to museums and then telling Ryan about them. So this is another solid episode.
It was mostly public areas, although at one point she did take us into some sort of special members board, special boardroom that they have. And what was really cool,
you got to have coffee with the ghost of Cary Grant. And he just told you stories.
No, it's just stuff. They let you put costumes on. It's really cool.
Okay, good.
It was actually a room in there. It's not a specifically movie poster museum, but in this boardroom they just had some incredible posters on the wall.
Wonderful.
That was really neat to see. But we did the whole thing. Again, I could have lingered everywhere a little bit slower, but wonderful. They have this Godfather exhibit right now that's a special exhibit that's running. Unfortunately, there was a Spike Lee exhibit which I guess left, which I missed, but the Godfather exhibit is there. They've got incredible stuff, casting lists, music. I mean, they kind of go through the different phases, costumes. I mean, it was really, Godfather nut. I mean, that was really special. The desk down, I think, obviously Coppola participated in it. They have his copy, the binder that you can buy the repro of, but they have that. Really, really incredible. And then just, what was insane was just things, again, you just wandering around not knowing what they have and don't have, but you just start bumping into things. And it was just oh my God. And it was Dracula's robe from the Coppola Dracula. So I guess another Coppola thing, but just where you're just oh my God, I could stare at this all day. And just really, really just insanely cool. It was really fun just to finally really get to see it.
That's great. I mean, I'm very jealous. We were early charter members of that.
Yes, we were early charter members. We've been in it. We got to be in it when it was empty.
We did, yeah.
we took our tour when it was
the
empty.
Hard Hat tour.
Yes,
we saw the inside of the Death Star when it was still under construction.
But and now finally. So and it was just it was incredible. Speaking of the Academy Museum. Yes, exactly. How about this? Speaking of the Academy Museum, we have with us a very, very special guest from the museum itself, the Senior Curator. That sounds so fancy. Nathalie Morris. Nathalie, hi, how are you?
Hi there.
Is that your title?
Hi,
is that the right title? Senior Curator? Did I say that right?
Pretty much. It's technically Senior Curator of Collections and Curatorial Affairs, which sounds rather
so much better. That is so much better. And we have to just start, and I want to get into so much because it was so incredible going there, and it was really wonderful. But what does the Senior Curator for Collections and Curatorial Affairs and whatever else you want to add on to that title? What I have no idea. I've never worked in a museum. You know, we all go to museums. Tell us, give us a sense of what do you do at the museum? Let's start there because I think people are very curious.
Sure. Well, I do a few things, as you can probably guess from having collections curator in my title. The main kind of focus of my job is working with the museum's collection in terms of kind of developing it and researching it. I work really closely with my colleagues in the collections management department as well, who do a lot of the kind of physical care of those objects. So yeah, my job involves kind of bringing new pieces into the collection and finding out more about what we have as well. I also do work on some of our exhibitions, so I work on some of the galleries as well.
I was going to say, right now, are any of there's a couple of like, I guess, semi-permanent displays, and then there's a couple of, from my perspective, what seemed like they looked like newer or more like transient, like things that'll be there and then might go. What are you claiming? What have you worked on that I might have seen?
Okay, so our core exhibition is called Stories of Cinema, and the structure of that is permanent, but the contents within that change out, and there are lots of different galleries within Stories of Cinema, and then we also have some temp shows. So within the current version of Stories of Cinema, which has several galleries have just changed, like literally at the start of November, I worked on the Academy Awards History Gallery, Story Gallery, which is about screenwriting and storyboarding, and the Identity Gallery, which is costume, hair, and makeup. From the temporary shows, I worked on the backdrop show.
In the Academy Museum, in the Academy exhibit, that's you're talking about. Where is that big? There was a bunch of Oscars, and then you went into like the bigger room. Is that where the clips were playing different acceptance speeches and whatnot, and then various people's even literally like the outfits some of them wore to the Academy? There is what looks like a green velvet tuxedo that Francis Ford Coppola wore to the Oscars in, I don't know, I think the Godfather year. I can't remember if it was Godfather or Godfather 2 now. Would you be the person to talk to if I wanted to have an exact replica of that green velvet tuxedo made for myself, just to have? Because it's striking. It is an incredible choice to see it, and it feels so Oscar-y all in one outfit. And it's funny that it's a man's outfit. I don't know, as opposed to a dress. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know, it's very, I don't know. It just, just a very special choice. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Firstly, I have to say, I think you would look great in a version of that suit.
Thank you. Yes. I wasn't fishing for the compliment, but yes, thank you.
But yeah, we could probably help supply kind of measurements and things. That suit's actually borrowed from American Zoetrope. So we probably need to talk to them too. But it was made by a company called The Tailored Man based in San Francisco.
The Tailored Man sounds like such a
70s.
I was going to say a big and tall man shop, by the way. That's what I was going to say. Speaking as someone who has shopped at, various, deluxe man stores and whatnot, that really does sound like a big and tall shop. But anyway, sorry.
The thing I love about that is it is so 70s, but it's also very on point in terms of men's kind of red carpet looks at the moment.
I feel like, yeah, it's 1972, but if you went out and wore it tomorrow, no one would, people would be complimenting you. Yeah, you'd be absolutely fine. So when you put something like that together,
White House Plumbers.
Yes, exactly. White House Plumbers
theme,
premiere.
I'm premiere award circuit. I mean, I think that if you're going to have a velour tuxedo made, I think it should make multiple appearances in your life. You know, I think it should be your thing.
I will state this right now. If we get nominated, if I'm lucky enough to get nominated for any sort of an Emmy for White House Plumbers, I will pursue the green velour tuxedo.
Fantastic.
I think that's my chance. So obviously with something like that, just to talk about this exhibit for 3 seconds, obviously we're not talking about props per se, you know, obviously like they're not movie props, but they are very much a part of movie history. And, you know, and what are you looking for? Like why that? Why, like, how do you make those choices? What are you like, what's your curatorial eye? What's your reasoning? Like, you know, because I'm assuming you have a lot of choices, but obviously, and that's kind of what's incredible about the museum. It's both huge and small. Like, it's giant. I couldn't believe, like, sometimes I got lost, like, because I thought, like, this can't go any deeper, but then there's another room. And then at the same time, there were rooms where I just went, that was incredible. It was huge, but yet I also wish there was more. And there's a sense that you guys have more. It's just not on display yet. So what goes into your choices of like, why these items? And by the way, the same thing. And we have collectors that listen, and we can jump over to like the hair and makeup stuff. Like, you had all those amazing, the wigs and all, like there were all those wigs. And so, I mean, like, again, what are you looking for? What helps you make a choice, I guess, is where I'm going with it.
Well, I guess the museum's mission statement kind of underpins everything we do in terms of our shows, our programming, our collection. And a key part of that is to advance the understanding, celebration, and preservation of film history. We want to be a very inclusive institution and think about kind of stories that maybe haven't been told so much in the past, like celebrating all of those very famous classics, but also kind of looking beyond that. In terms of this particular gallery, one kind of important starting point was knowing that we had the Godfather show happening at the same time, and my colleague Sophia Serrano, who was working on that, texted me a picture when she was doing archival research up at Zoetrope, and she's like, "Oh, are you interested in this for Academy Awards history?" And I was like, "Yes." The picture didn't even justify the gloriousness of that green color, which you really need to see it in person.
It's more green in person. It's more green in person. It doesn't read as green in my photos of it, but it's very green in person, which I think is very special. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you watch the acceptance speech when Coppola goes up to accept the award for screenplay for adapted film, it looks very 70s, and yeah, the colors are definitely dimmed. So I really wanted to feature that. We like sometimes to draw, like have little connections between the galleries, like little Easter eggs and nuggets that you can sort of pick up a thread, and a bit later on you'll be like, oh, that links back to this. So I knew I wanted that. I also knew I like red carpet fashion is such an important part of the Oscars and the experience and the pleasure of watching the show every year. And obviously fabulous couture gowns were a really key part of that. But I wanted to make sure we had kind of a range of different looks, and it's great to have a male look. We've got high glamour couture represented through Halle Berry's amazing Elisab dress, which is also really important because it was the year that she won Best Actress for Monsters Ball, which was a groundbreaking moment. And you mentioned the speeches that are on the wall. That speech is included. So I think getting to have that moment of resonance where you see that speech, which is so emotional, it always makes me well up when I'm in the gallery when that's on.
That's amazing.
Seeing that actual dress kind of next to the speech is, you know, that was
That's
something
great.
I kind of thought would be a great moment.
And I guess in a baby way, I mean, again, obviously it's historic no matter what, and obviously a great speech, an incredible speech, but also obviously ties into a little bit of what's going on in the new the bigger exhibit on sort of the history of African American cinema that's going on up on the third floor. So there's a little sort of, I guess, not exactly an Easter egg, but a tie-in in that way as well, which I didn't even think about. Yes, a less ham-fisted segue than certainly a smoother segue than we're used to here. But
I have a very important question. Do you have Bjork's swan dress? Does that still exist? And is it in your possession?
It's not in our possession, sadly, but that's definitely on our list for pieces that we would like to feature in the future.
If I can think of the Bjork dress, and then what was it? Was it the lady? She was, I believe, the costume designer for Priscilla, Queen in the Desert, who wore the dress made of like American Express gold cards or something like that. Is that what it was? I mean, these are dresses that are. I am not a red carpet guy, and those are seared into my brain, which I guess speaks to a little bit the Oscars overall, but also, again, not to loop it around, but the fun of the museum. I mean, just the fact that, like, you guys are, are acknowledging the red carpet aspects of the Academy, which is not necessarily, I don't know, it felt different than a boring museum. I don't know. That's I mean that in a good way. I mean, there's
and that's what I love about what I'm hearing, and what Dave has described and talked about, is that it's fun, and it's not making dusty history out of movie. Movies are meant to be escapist entertainment, and yes, the Oscars are very glamorous, and the Academy and everything, and it's the true American art form. But I love that you guys are having fun with it, because that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, I think we do such a lot of different things. Like, we tell a lot of serious stories. We look at the kind of the darker and more dishonorable kind of side of the industry. We have sections on Me Too. And just to add, like, the third costume, or piece of fashion, I should say, really, in that gallery, but it's almost a costume in a way, was worn by Jenny Bevan when she won for Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, see, that's the one that I was thinking of. That when you started talking about it, I thought that's what you were going for, because you said costumer, and
I forgot, because I saw it there too, and it's incredible. It's
amazing.
Yeah, it's insane.
It looks like she walked off the Fury Road,
right?
But on Oscar night,
which in
hindsight, I love that she was having fun there.
She definitely was having fun, but also in hindsight, that movie should have been Best Picture that year. Do you get
completely?
I feel like
completely.
I don't know. Like, that's the one piece of it, which is, I don't know. You got, this is my suggestion to the museum. I feel like in any given year, it's also always a little shocking, not just who won, but sometimes in a way, and I don't mean like who lost, but just like sometimes like just hearing who the other nominees were. Yeah, who didn't win, which I don't know what you do with that, but there's something funny about that too, or just something enjoyable where you go, oh my God, that's right, that was that year. I don't know how you make an exhibit out of that, but I always find that, fascinating.
Annie Hall is a great movie, Dave.
Yes, it is. It's a fine movie, as is Chariots of Fire, but
and Gandhi.
Yeah, but no Raiders. But yeah. The other one I wanted to bring up was the I don't know, again, forgive me, you'll know the screenwriter the screenwriter exhibit, or the screenwriter room. That was another one of yours as well, right? That was one of yours, Ryan. This is the first museum you will ever get to go to where people are acknowledging writers. It's like glorious.
We exist.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, honestly speaking, I can't explain it. It was like, it was empowering. It wasn't the biggest of rooms, but it was like, oh my God, scripts. They have in there, what's his name? Joseph Stefano. Is that DiStefano or Stefano? Sorry, the guy who wrote Psycho. They have his
Hitchcock,
they have his typewriter in there, and
great.
Then they have Larry Kaczynski and Scott Alexander. They have Scott Alexander's, I don't even know what the hell that thing was, like a 1982 like word processor.
Yeah, the old word processor.
Yeah, exactly, with floppy disks, floppy disks there.
I love it.
And actually, the day I was there, Larry Krasinski was actually there showing his niece around. So I stopped him and got to say hello. And I said, do you have any props? Do you want to come on the show? So we'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so Larry, come on the show, and we'll talk to you whether you have props or not. But
that was shortly before you were escorted off the property.
Please, sir,
no
this
soliciting.
way, sir, this way. Please leave the writers area.
Right.
But again, not props.
Did they have a director? Is there a director on staff in the writers exhibit to say, please keep moving? Do not acknowledge that this room exists. Don't look over there. I did everything. It's an auteur's medium.
You guys. You guys should frame, Natalie, if I had one suggestion, we get these things sometimes from the Writers Guild that are like our writers' rights, and you should frame one of them, because it's always like, you have the right to ask to be invited to set. It doesn't say you get invited to set. It's just you have the right to ask to be invited. You have the right to ask to see the movie. It's all these rights that you are allowed to ask, and they're allowed to say no and go F yourself, but you're allowed to ask. And it is the most unempowering document you've ever seen, and I feel like it should be hung right up next to like a picture of like strike breakers or something from like the 1940s.
It's like going to an American embassy in some despot country where they tell you, you know, you have the right to ask not to be beaten by the secret police.
Yeah,
you can totally
please don't go on the internet.
Well within
we've shut the internet down. But again, you know, and you know, maybe the typewriter and the word processor, maybe not necessarily the things that we would collect, but we just did an entire episode about people that collect scripts. There's some incredible storyboards, and showing the script to storyboard thing in there. I mean, again, and are these things, again, are you pulling these things, I guess, a little bit from your guys' collection, or what was some of the thinking there? Because again, a hall of writers. It was just wonderful.
I love it.
Yeah, well, the typewriter and the computer are both in the museum's collection.
Oh, that's excellent.
I knew I really wanted, the typewriter had already been in our previous kind of iteration of that gallery, but I knew I wanted to kind of keep the theme of technology and actually, you know, the tools that a writer uses, as well as showing scripts themselves. And Scott donated his K-Pro to the museum.
K-Pro, I couldn't remember the K-Pro. I mean,
K-Pro 2X, if you want to be precise. The thing I love about that as well is that Scott said that was a portable computer, like he would carry it on planes, and it still has a luggage tag attached to it.
That's awesome.
It's literally
George actually, it's not a word processor, but George R. R. Martin writes on a like off the internet. This would be great for the TV Academy actually at some point. It's an offline DOS machine, and it runs like WordStar, which is the old like sort of like a DOS based, you know, word processor where you hit the function keys to get like the tabs done, because he's so terrified of getting hacked and whatever. So he saves his work on flop, and he has this whole system of like people have to come in at the end of the day and like save his work and put it on real hard drives and all that. I think it's a future exhibit. I just love quirky old writer stuff.
You look at this K-Pro thing, and it's not plugged in, but in your mind, you know the screen is somehow orange. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like orange with like a, you know, you see in your mind it's
red
orange
with yellow type.
Yeah,
that's what I say. Yeah.
Well, before Scott donated it, I asked if he would fire it up so we could get some screenshots of what it looked like. Unfortunately, the phrase "fire it up" is probably not the best choice
Sparks.
It did actually catch fire and start smoking when he did that. So we won't be trying that again.
Yeah.
Some Larry Flint sparks coming right out of it. The genius flying out, just sparks. Yeah.
But the starting point for that gallery for the rest of the content is I always go to the Margaret Herrick Library, which is the Academy's library.
Yes.
Which has been going since the beginning and has absolutely amazing collections. And spent many days rooting through different files there, looking at different script drafts to decide which pieces to feature. And then we also worked with other lenders, private lenders, writers, to borrow pieces from them as well.
I've been to the Margaret Herrick. When I was a frustrated, just new to LA screenwriter, I went over there to read scripts because it's free to the public. You just kind of sign things in, you have to sit there and read it. But I just went in to read. I actually was reading Nickel Fellowship drafts of fellowship winners and things like that, just to get a sense of what the amateur screenwriters that were breaking through with the Nickel Fellowships in screenwriting, which is the Academy's sort of competition to break new screenwriters. So it's a wonderful library.
I sent them a copy of our original Eurotrip draft. They didn't ask for it. They keep sending it back, but I keep sending it to them. So
it'll
maybe
stick.
Eventually they'll
maybe Nathalie can help us.
Yeah, Nathalie, could I just have a key to a box and I could just put it on display, kind of a thing? Eurotrip? No, all right, fine. It's got a lot of penises in it. It's really really something.
It's right up there with Psycho.
So Nellie, this is sort of bringing up the Herrick Library. I think this is kind of interesting. Like, talk a little bit if you can, because I think again now get into our sort of core sort of prop collectors a little bit. Like, how big? Like, what is this? I guess where we were. I don't know. This is my easiest way of asking this. So, obviously there is the Herrick Library, and that has all of these, like, scripts and connected to scripts and notes and all sorts of things
photographs
like that. And obviously there's always been a large Academy movie poster collection, and then there's things that the Academy has acquired over the years. And now the museum itself has, over its years of sort of, I guess, I don't know what to call it, sort of in the years of planning. So you guys have your own collection. It's all considered one giant like, what do you, and then also, like, let's just cut to it. What do you guys have? Like, how much is there? Like, what can we, like, like, how are we going to get, like, yeah, how much you guys got? That's the honest answer. That's the question.
We've got a lot. We've got a lot of stuff. So there are 3 separate collecting divisions, departments within the Academy. We all work really closely together. There's the Academy Film Archive, the Margaret Herrick Library, and the museum. And what we collect is sort of divided along physical terms, I guess. So the Film Archive collects moving image. The library collects paper and now digital documents. And the museum, I guess, broadly speaking, we say that we'd collect 3D objects, but there's always grey area and a little bit of crossover. So things like paper props, the museum would collect, but the library sometimes has examples of those too. But we work really closely together, both in terms of borrowing things from the Margaret Herrick Library. They're our biggest lender by far to our shows. And it's always a really important starting point for our research, both for choosing what we're going to put in the shows, but also finding out more about what we're talking about, finding out more about objects as well. So the museum has about 8,000 objects in its collection. The Margaret Herrick Library's collections are absolutely vast. I think they have 13 million stills, over 90,000 scripts,
Wow.
about 150,000 pieces of production artwork, so costume designs, production designs. So the collections are very big.
Original pieces, yeah, one-on-ones, yeah, cool. Wow.
But still, 8,000 3D objects. I mean, that's a heck of a start. Like, are you constantly getting stuff? Like, are you tracking down things from sort of old Academy members? Like, how, let's, if you can get into a little bit of sort of the acquisition side, because I do think our viewers are always kind of interested in that. I definitely want to loop around also to auctions a bit, but let's start like in just the world, because I think we've all heard stories about like the ruby slippers that you guys have, that that there was like at some point like collector, like some, I think like Leonardo DiCaprio and a couple of people came together to buy them for the Academy. And I've heard over in years past, people buying Academy Awards that came up for like auction and then giving it back to the Academy, things like that. So you have, sometimes like celebrities and directors and, people like that, like supporting the museum that way, but also in terms of like people who just have stuff like directors and actors that kept their own, I don't know, personal archives or just their own collections and stuff. So how, I don't know if there's a way of kind of giving a little sort of sense of like where your stuff is coming from and how you're tracking it down a bit. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, we're really lucky to have the relationship that we have with the industry and with our members being part of the Academy. So we do get a lot of offers of material coming that way. We have an email address where people can contact us and tell us about things that they have. So we get a lot of traffic coming that way, which is really fantastic and can really turn up unexpected things. And that could be
stuff dreams are made of @gmail.com.
Ask
that
for
could
David.
be from industry people or people who just found things that have come into their possession or belong to a family member or something like that. And we also like proactively reach out to people when we can, when time and staffing allows.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask is I imagine because you're the Academy and the museum and there's been so much promotion recently about the opening and getting charter members and donors and things like that. I imagine there's a lot of incoming calls, right? I mean, is that outweighing your active pursuit of things and objects?
Yeah, it's trying to find a balance, but obviously if someone is taking the time to write in and make an offer to you, you want to make sure you kind of research that and think about it carefully. So that does take up quite a bit of time, and it's always interesting, and you always learn something along the way. We don't accept everything that's offered. We're always kind of thinking about, does it fit into our kind of collecting scope? What does it add to the collection? Does it duplicate something or relate too closely to something we already have? Like, do we need more than one of X? What stories could it allow us to tell?
Is there any, I don't know, like crazy phone call, like, or incoming phone call or email that you just like, you guys could has anyone ever, I know I saw like the I think it's the Spielberg Rosebud sled was on display, but have you guys ever gotten an email where it's like, hey, I've got this Rosebud sled, do you guys want it? I found it. My uncle was, I don't know, Orson Welles' driver, and I've got like 6 of these things. Do you guys want them? I'm about to throw them out. Has there been any like crazy ones like that?
I personally haven't had one of those yet. I've only been here 2 years, so I'm sure give it enough time and something will turn up like that.
Okay. Well, let me go the other way then.
Call.
How often do you get like sort of, hey, can you come over here and help me empty my garage? But there's not really anything that good in it. You know what I mean? Like, let's go the other way. Because I'm assuming everyone, look, we're all, especially on the collecting side, we all think what we have are treasures. Whether they are treasures or not can sometimes be a little, I saved all of these pieces of carbon paper from my typewriter. And have you had to like let anyone down gently? Like, what's it like to reject something that the museum either doesn't need or kind of in these sort of Monty Python, we've already got one, you know what I mean?
It's always very hard, especially if it's something that's very personal to somebody. But just because we are not taking something and it's not right for us, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not of value in a different context as well. So that's always something I try and underscore to people as well.
That's very polite. It sounds like a lot of junk. Sounds like a lot of junk.
Writer's
I have
story,
a few
Dave.
stock phrases.
Let me hear your stock phrases. No, my husband's dead, and I've got this thing, and I'd really like you guys to take it. It's very important to us. What are you going to sell me?
No, I can't say it because then I won't be able to use them again.
Okay,
that's right.
Fair enough.
That's
fair
right.
enough. You need to use
I have my whole archive of working with Brett Ratner on 2014's Hercules. Is the Academy interested in that?
Luckily, in lots of instances, I can just pass you on to my colleagues in the library as well, and they can have that conversation.
That sounds like one of her phrases. I have a yellow pad with almost like less than 1 page of notes from the 5 minutes when Brett Ratner was going to produce the Oscars and I was going to be a writer when Eddie Murphy was going to host. And we had one meeting and then he was thrown out of the business. So if you're interested in those notes of some ideas,
I mean, that's actually an important slice of Academy history.
Can I tell you the one really funny idea that, of course, there was no way of using? It was going to be to first do the in memoriam segment. Like the obviously this is for the broadcast. It was going to be and Eddie Murphy was hosting, or that was the idea. Eddie Murphy was hosting the in memoriam. These are the people that died this year, and then these are the people we wish had died this year. And it was going to be some footage of some people. They were never going to do that, but boy, no. I like that joke.
It was good.
So I want to loop to something like, for example, just something I saw that was just insane. I don't know what room it is, so forgive me. It was sort of its own thing, and it was really cool and really well done because I went up to the top and I worked my way down. I don't know if there's any right way or wrong way, but that's how we did it. And Barbara took me around, who was great, and that's how she said we should do it. So I feel like it was important. But we went into a room and we were looking down, which was really cool, on the giant forest and Mount Rushmore, the matte painting of the forest and Mount Rushmore from North by Northwest. And you kind of get to go, I went in first like on this like balcony and then got to go down on the main floor, and there's some wonderful just, production stills where you can kind of, see it, both when it's used behind the restaurant, but then also some of when they're just like walking in the forest, the fake forest, because it was all built and stuff. And of course the footage of the little kid with who sticks his fingers in his ears right before the gunshot, which
the anticipatory,
which I don't know, this is in one of those books, I want to say it's maybe the did you ever read the Donald did either of you ever read the Donald Spoto Hitchcock book? I think it's Spoto.
I did, yeah.
His theory was that Alma Hitchcock went over every frame with basically a jeweler's loop. She's the one that caught a little gurgle or something in Psycho, oh, you can see her breathing or whatever. And I think he's the one that says it, or at least I'm going to give him credit, that they saw it because the in the museum it's sort of presented a little bit as an error, but there's the theory that no, they were aware of it, but that was sort of the nature of North by Northwest, and they were okay with sort of the purposeful screw up. Anyway, that was really interesting. Anyway, where I was going with this, sorry, a very odd detour. This thing is incredible. It's the matte painting. I mean, we took 1,000 pictures wild. In that room. Yeah. It is this object. Is that something that's been in the, I mean, it blew me away. So where does something like that come from, to talk about something that goes beyond prop? Because obviously, yeah, sure, that would be insane in my living room. But honestly, when that was something that when I saw that, I was like, this is why this museum exists, because where else are you going to put this thing, and who else would have it? And so where does that come from?
We have quite a few backings in our collection. They're the biggest objects that we have.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, that's 30 by 40 feet. It was originally larger than that as well. We think it got cut down for subsequent use because it was a working piece. So it came originally from the collection of JC Backings, which is a company set up by the Coakley family, who I think are now a fourth generation family who've worked in backdrops and backings. So starting with the old MGM Scenic Art Department, and then the family started their own company. It's now run by Lynn Coakley, and they specialize in photographic backdrops as well as painted backdrops, which are obviously not used as much as they once were.
Sure.
And with this show, we wanted to kind of tell that story and have that context to come up to the future, but really hone in on this really classic piece of film technology, analog film technology, I guess. So that backing was in their collection. They've maintained their kind of studio on the Sony lot, the old MGM lot, and it was on display there for many years, and that's where we first saw it hanging up on the racks. And we asked if we could borrow it for our show. We wanted to have a real showstopper, like a well-known film as well. And during the course of planning the show and discussing the loan, JC Backings decided that they wanted to donate it to us, which was a fantastic outcome from our point of view. And we built the show around that. We decided to kind of have the introductory section where you kind of explore that history of the painted backdrop and how it became increasingly sophisticated, talk a little bit about the filmmakers who still like to use that type of technology deliberately. So people like Christopher Nolan, Damien Chazelle, Quentin Tarantino, and also just do a bit of a deep dive into the use of backdrops and other special effects across that Mount Rushmore chase sequence. The really huge one of the president's faces, the close-up one from kind of the higher level, that still exists as well. And I believe is currently on show in Boca Raton as part of another backdrop show.
Something that's wonderful. In their archives also still the Coakleys, did you say?
It was part of the JC Backings collection. I believe they've now donated that to the University of Texas, who have a specialist there, Karen Manis, who's done lots of work on the history of backdrop painting and is herself a scenic artist. So we,
I mean, it's a bit of a digression, but any opportunity to drop House of the Dragon in for Google searching into the podcast. But we actually, it's funny that it's still, as Nathalie mentioned, it's still a viable bit of movie technology, even though it's very retro. It's still used. We used it for the Battle of the Stepstones this year on the show. and we intended originally to stage the beach sequence inside of a quarry where we could ship sand in, where we didn't have to deal with the tides and whatever. And we found this great quarry, and then it turned out there were these endangered sand lizards that lived there, and you couldn't touch the earth and all this. And so we actually had to relocate it to our back lot. And Jim Clay, our production designer, who's been in the business since the analog era, was like, we're going to do this painted backdrop thing to make it look like we're surrounded with cliffs. And he brought in a bunch of shipping containers, stacked them up, and then had scenic artists come in. And it is insane. Painted a complete wraparound cliff face in 2 dimensions that is only a few, dozen yards away from the camera. And when you're standing there looking at it, it looks like a Wile E. Coyote thing, because it's real and it's wonderful, and it's real and painted, but it's 2 dimensions. And you're saying there's no way this is going to, and sure enough, once the camera's on it, once you choose the right lenses, throw a bunch of atmosphere in front of it, it was magical, and it worked. And we barely, we touched up some things and whatever, where the camera, focused too much on it or whatever, but there are tons of shots in that sequence where it's just that 2D painted backing, and it's really incredible.
It's a really incredible skill, I think, that scenic artists have in terms of knowing how to put that image onto canvas and know how it's going to translate for the screen. And that often looks much more realistic than a photographic backdrop.
I think that's the thing, is the specific art form of being able to see it through the camera lens, because having not seen the North by Northwest close up, there was a trick with this, is like it looks different through the camera than there, and what blows my mind is these painters are up there doing this thing, in extreme close up, and they can see it through the camera, many dozen yards back. It's just it's like string theory to me. It's beyond my grasp of understanding, but it's
but it also, it speaks to obviously both the art of the artisan, but also just what Hitchcock wanted. I mean, to talk about, just the process of filmmaking, the story he was trying to tell. And obviously, I don't know what you can or can't see from I've never been to Mount Rushmore, but I don't know what you can or can't see, but this idolized version, whatever it is so spot on perfect that at no point do you really think this isn't what you would see. And of course, he was able to do it all at, whatever backlot they were probably Universal at the time. There's just something kind of incredible about that. And again, the process of filmmaking. And so not to, congratulate the museum yet again, but it really stimulates and teaches not just about these objects, but sort of how they're used and how they're used in the overall, like, to tell a story, which I part of what I loved about the visit. And it's Hitchcock, and there's other Hitchcock things in your story thing. Obviously, we mentioned the Psycho thing. There were some storyboards from the Birds. I remember seeing those in there, which are great by the guy they did the documentary about recently,
Harold Michelson.
Yes, Harold Michelson.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really wonderful. And our buddy Kelvin has a couple of Harold Michelson originals, which are insane. I mean, his originals are insane. Again, these objects, but also Hitchcock and film history. I know, just wild. And again, I don't know, I'm a Hitchcock nut, so it was incredible to see. And the pictures, I mean, it sounds silly, but the silly pictures we took in the room are just great. I mean, they're really great. It looks like we might be there, which again speaks to how they were putting these things together. So just kind of wild. Alrighty, well, it's time for another prop store ad. Isn't that right, Ryan? Yeah, Dave, that's right. What do we got here? Well, take it away, Ryan. Well, over the course of the last 2 seasons, our friend Chuck Costas has written a different ad. Ryan, come on. Jesus Christ, Ryan, read the damn thing. Sorry, Dave. Our friend Chuck Costas has written a different ad each week talking about various things that are going on at Prop Store. Put some pep in it, Ryan. This week, he's asking us to speak from the heart and tell you what we like about Prop Store. So they want us to each pick 3 things. So Ryan, why don't you go first? Well, I love their marketing and sponsorship of the Stuff Dreams Are Made Of podcast. Ryan, that seems very selfish that we're trying to really sell the store. And it is great that they do sponsor this, one of the all-time great, if not greatest, podcasts about prop collecting. But there's so much more to Prop Store. And I, for one, I love the people there. For those of you who've been watching the show, we've had many of them on. We've had Chuck, we've had Steven, we've had Brandon. There are so many others. I like the place because I like the people. There's honesty and integrity. They are collectors themselves. They've been doing it a long time, and I really appreciate that. Ryan, what else do you like? Pick something for real this time. Prop Store COAs. That is excellent, Ryan. That is absolutely right. Prop Store does their research. Their COAs mean something, and they do the research and they guarantee that research, and that really means something. That was really good, Ryan. Thank you, Dave. What else, Ryan? Prop Store's quality in producing auctions. Oh, okay. So what do you mean by that? Their catalogs and live events. Yeah, their catalogs are gorgeous. All the pictures online. Their events, now that we're post-COVID, their events, their auctions are events unto themselves. Your ability to go and see stuff, to make appointments on Zoom when they're having an auction and look at stuff on Zoom if you don't want to go in person. It's a great operation. I've got another one here, which is ease as a consigner and buyer. And that kind of connects to the auction thing there. The virtual previews, the videos, the auction archives, so you can check prices, you can check other things that have sold from your favorite movies. It just makes things really easy, and transparent is another word that I really love and I want to use here. And finally, for me, because Ryan, you did your three. I love their new website and easy-to-use auction platform. Whether it's buy it now stuff, selling, auctions, whatever it is, they make it really simple. It works. It's clean. I like the interface. And there are so many auction houses that are using outdated and older sort of like, am I bidding? Do I have the high bid? What's going on? And again, Prop Store makes it really, really easy. And Ryan, there was something else you wanted to say about the buy it now stuff, right? That's right. I wanted to remind everyone, don't use the Ryan 10 code this year. Just use the Dave 10 code this year when you're buying stuff on the Prop Store Buy It Now site. Just the Ryan 10 code does not work. This is Ryan speaking. This is 100% Ryan speaking. I'm in London. I'm making Game of Thrones. Next season, there's going to be another dragon or two. So that's how you know it's me, Ryan. And I would 100% like you to use the Dave 10 code. Well, thank you, Ryan. That's very nice of you. So whether you're new to the hobby or an experienced collector, propstore.com should be your favorite destination for entertainment memorabilia. Find your extraordinary. Right, Ryan? Yes.
Support for The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in the men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, so join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code PROPSPODCAST at manscaped.com. And if my math is correct, that's about 12 million balls.
Nathalie, you had mentioned something to me when we talked previously, which is you mentioned obviously the Academy, and I think collectors are always like, I hear the Academy's bidding or things of that nature. And you had mentioned you are sort of the first line of defense, that you're the first person to kind of look through auction catalogs. So first of all, I was just so thrilled that so first of all, you are looking through auction catalogs. You are subscribed and you are looking at all the same catalogs that we're looking at. What hits you? Like, what's the process? Like, what is the process of you guys acquiring something in auction? It can be, if there's a specific example, wonderful, but even a general example, like, how does it work? Because again, I think beyond the gifting and whatnot, this is something our viewers are very curious about, of like, when you guys step forward to go, that's something we would like, or that's something we need to have, or however that works. So a catalog shows up in your mail, and what happens?
It shows up, I make a cup of coffee and sit down for some fun. And I always love listening to your show when you guys are going through the auction catalogs.
Have we ever convinced
you
sorry about that. Not to buy something, or to buy something? Like, have you ever said to yourself, I'm just going to bid for the fuck of it, and I'm going to drive the price up on Ryan just for, I'm going to make
Have you won an X-Wing recently, Nathalie? Did that happen?
I don't think we'd want to compete with you guys or any of the very serious big bucks collectors. Unfortunately, our budget is not as big as I would like it to be. This is a perennial museum problem, but the plus side of that is it does help you kind of focus your collecting. And obviously we have to make sure our budget lasts across the year, so we don't get to the end of a financial year and then realize that we can't bid on something we really, really want. But yeah, I will go through the catalogue and try to put on my objective hat. Sometimes I'll throw in things that I love just to see if my colleagues are kind of are interested as well.
Like, what is there, like, anything come to mind? Like, what's something you might circle, knowing it's kind of more of a you thing, whether or not they like it or not? But what's something you might circle? Where does your taste go to?
Well, a bunch of like the British stuff probably like resonates with me the most strongly out of the team. So if you, those pieces tend to like appear probably more frequently than they used to. But I will put together a kind of very long list just to circulate around the curatorial team. So we kind of discuss each piece kind of and come to a collective decision, weigh up pros and cons.
Will there be like a formal meeting on, like, say, an auction catalog, or is it more just like kind of an ongoing email or chain or Slack or whatever these days? Yeah.
We have a regular meeting where we discuss collection offers, and I will kind of present on things that have come into us as being offered as donations, for example. So we tend to kind of wrap all of those conversations together. And I guess the things that we're looking at are kind of thinking about good quality objects. What are the films? What are the stories they can tell? Does it fill like a particular gap in our collection? So if, say, it's a piece of technology, we don't want to have like an encyclopedic collection necessarily, but, you know, we'd like to have key moments or developments represented. So does that fill a gap and help kind of expand how we could tell that story? Does it give us the opportunity to maybe tell a different or unexpected story? Is it a great example of craftsmanship? Is the film kind of something that might resonate with our visitors? I think a lot about our galleries, because while it's great to have a collection, you want to have a kind of outlet where you can show them. So if there's, you know, for example, Academy Awards fashions, we know that we have somewhere that we want to show that. So I'll always kind of pay attention and see if there's something coming up in that realm, which is probably outside of, you know, the type of things that you guys tend to come across when you're looking for pieces. And thinking about our temporary shows that we have planned for the future. So those shows are, you know, being planned 5-6 years ahead. So if I know that we've got something coming up in, say, 2027, I will make sure I put that on the list so the curator of that show can think about if that's something they might be interested in including. Obviously, you're not going to necessarily have a final checklist ahead of time by that much, but knowing that a particular kind of topic might be coming up is also a kind of factor.
Yeah. Do you in terms of actual bidding, I mean, do you go to the auction? Do you send a representative to the auction live? Do you guys have a meeting to decide this is our absolute max on this piece, this item? Are you on the phone? Are you bidding online? I mean, how is that all sorted out?
So yeah, we narrow it down to kind of a shorter list, and then I will kind of start doing a bit more research. Obviously, I don't want to do that at the early stages because it's so time consuming. I want to kind of have that smaller list to work from. And then we will decide how much we feel kind of we would want to bid for that piece and kind of set a maximum at that point.
I just want to point out to our longtime listeners, do your research. It's the one thing we always say over and over and over again. And to hear that a representative of the Academy Museum, the senior curator, say it too, puts a smile on my face, because obviously, things are listed and then they don't quite turn out to be what they are, or you find something out about them or whatever it is. And if you're going to, again, just to talk about the purchasing, if you're going to spend money, make sure you're getting what you want and that it is what it is. And
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, have you had experiences where you found a piece, you liked it, and then you went and researched it and it wasn't right? I mean, not calling out a specific catalog or auction company. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, I guess it happens more often than not, in a way. Or it's not necessarily that you definitively find out that it's not legit, but there are enough question marks to make us step back.
Yeah.
And obviously building our museum collection, we want to be as sure as possible anytime we're going to do a bid. And as you know, the time that you have available between getting that catalogue and for us with all the other stages in between, it's not always as much time as you would want. So we do what we can in the time available.
And do you do the bidding? I think we were curious about that. Who does the bidding?
Yeah. So one of my lovely colleagues in the library does a lot of our bidding for us. Sometimes I will do it. One time he was on holiday, so I had to phone bid at the weekend while I was pushing my toddler on a swing in the park. That was
We've all
funny.
been there, Natalie.
Yes, I was about to say there's no shame in that.
There totally is, but there's not. Not on this podcast. This is a safe place. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's mostly my library colleague, and sometimes I get involved as well. But if he's bidding, we're usually kind of texting each other. Sometimes while I'm giving a tour, I have to be like, oh, excuse me, I just need to comment on a price. And so that is always good fun.
Well, I was going to ask a question about a rumor that we had heard in the collecting community, and if you can't answer it, it's fine. Recently, within the last couple of years, there was a really nice 2001 spacesuit that went through, I believe, Julian's, and it was really well documented. And what it was one of the moon-based costumes, and we had heard that there was a sort of angel bidder who went, and a very famous angel bidder that went and won that costume for the museum. Did that happen? Will we see that suit on display possibly in the future? Is that one you can talk about?
Maybe David could comment on that, having been to the museum recently.
Is
it there?
It's pretty crazy cool.
Is it there?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
great.
The ship is there. Do you remember that one that showed up in that weird little auction, Ryan? Forgive me, it's like one of the moon-based ships. It's like one of the few surviving Kubrick pieces. Yeah, that's their. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I was going to say the Ares 1B and the spacesuit are both there and on view. They've both had conservation work, restoration work.
Fantastic.
In the case of the Ares 1B, we have a great conservation team, so we always want to kind of make pieces look as stabilize them and make them look as good as possible without going too far.
Is that
can I ask a question?
Okay.
One more question. Sorry, Dave. If one of us collectors had a piece that was of significance and important, is that something that we, even if we weren't going to put it in the museum, could we bring to you guys and hire your conservation team to take a look and take care of it, or is that a completely closed loop over there?
Sadly not. We're kind of pretty busy working on everything in our own collection of things that we borrow that are going into our shows. But if you have a question and it's something that we could answer quickly, obviously we always want to be able to kind of help. Point
in the right direction. Okay, fair enough. Sorry, Dave, what were you going to ask?
Oh, I was going to ask, so in terms of the notion of something like those things, I guess, do you have people that I guess that like, I don't know, like the Leonardo DiCaprios of the world, where if something like insanely, like, did you ask them to give you that suit, or did they kind of, I don't know, like kind of go, we're going to buy this suit and give it to you, whether you want it or not? Do you know what I mean? Like chicken and the egg, like where does it start? Or is it just people you're constantly in contact with? And obviously that suit and Kubrick in 2001, the new Sight and Sound list just came out of, their, I think 200 best all-time films. And, I don't know, that one's at 2001's at like a very strange number 8, should have been higher. But anyway, I guess, how does that kind of come about in terms of people buying stuff for you on your behalf or things you want? Like were you guys involved from the get-go, or did it kind of happen?
The spacesuit happened before my time, so unfortunately I can't really talk too much to that. one of the issues with angel donors, we'd always want to kind of have a conversation or reach out to somebody, or if someone knows there's something coming up, we'd love to talk to them and like review it in terms of saying, yes, we definitely want something. Usually the time frame is just very, very short, unless, you know, it's something that you've been involved in or someone has some intel like way ahead of time to give you that lead time to explore that angel donor option. But it doesn't happen as often as you might think.
Do you guys have a Maltese Falcon? No. Shit.
Well, that's what so I was going to ask. I mean, less specific, but I mean, in your mind, sort of holy grails, Natalie, we talk a lot about those on the show. We kind of hate the term, but I feel like if there's ever an appropriate use of it, it's talking to the senior curator of the Academy Museum. What's the holy grail? What's missing? What's the thing that you guys desperately want in the collection? I mean, the Maltese Falcon is a good one. What is it?
Oh my God, there's like so many, I think, once you start as well, because each piece would serve a different purpose, I guess, in a way, because there are so many perspectives. It's not just one person's special thing. Obviously, a Maltese Falcon would be great. We have the ruby slippers already, which I know has, you know, they've been described as a holy grail, and you talked about them in those terms in the episode.
Very much are, yeah.
On the ruby slippers, which is one of my favorite episodes of the podcast. I don't even know where to begin, actually. I did do a straw poll, actually, with my colleagues. I thought it would be fun just to kind of do a kind of fantasy, what would you like? And not necessarily being 100% serious, or maybe being serious. And some of the things that came up were the camera from Peeping Tom that's used as a murder weapon. Okay. The razor from Chien Andalou. We're obviously a really morbid bunch.
Wow.
Okay.
A set of martini glasses from The Thin Man.
Wow. Okay.
This is wonderfully specific.
This is a high-class crowd.
I love this.
Han Solo blaster, Indiana Jones jacket. Yeah, talk to our lowbrow crew.
How many Conan swords were on the straw poll list?
Well, we know where we can go for one of those. So,
yeah, that's right.
Martini glasses from The Thin Man.
The Thin Man. I like that one.
I love that one. Yeah. I guess I would have gone for just almost like a matching outfits, like a Nick and Nora sort of, his and hers sort of suits, because I always think of not the fashion specifically, but just the look of them, or maybe a stuffed Asta. Exactly. Yeah.
Natalie, do you have a absolute favorite piece in the 8,000 3D pieces collection? What's the thing that you just love the most that you've seen over there?
Oh, that's so hard. I do have a leaning towards costume pieces. And on view at the moment, we have an Adrian designed headpiece worn by Greta Garbo in Matahari.
Oh, fantastic.
That's very beautiful. It's very hard though. It's like trying to pick a favorite child.
Sure. Was that already in the collection when you joined, or is that something that you helped to oversee the acquisition of?
Part of it was in the collection already. And I think another part maybe came in around the time that I joined, so I can't claim any credit for it. But it's actually a headdress that comes in two pieces. There's the main part, and then it has this amazing kind of pinnacle that sort of sticks up behind it. And you see it in both versions in the film.
Is that something you're also keeping your eye out for when you're looking through catalogs, like bad version? Oh my God, that's the hat that goes with the suit we have. Like things like that, complete ensembles or things that you have pieces of, kind of a thing. Is that something you're kind of keeping an eye out for?
I'd be super excited if that kind of happened. And sometimes we will buy individual kind of elements, like, hats, for instance, or kind of jewelry pieces, because so much costume, you're very lucky if you get a whole ensemble that survives. And sometimes a film or an actor, we'd really like to have, or a designer, we'd really like to have their work represented, but sometimes a piece is a good way to do that. And then you never know, you might suddenly find the other elements further down the line.
Yeah.
Again, it's not that different from our collecting of sort of like, there's a hat. Do I buy this hat? Do I go out? Then am I going to have to find the rest of it? Yeah.
Boots, because then I have a Batman suit problem. And yes.
I think we'd always, just want to think about, is it something that can stand alone as well? So we probably wouldn't get like one sock or something.
my Batman boots. I don't
What if
have
it was
them.
a Jawa sock? A Jawa sock.
Yeah, well, then totally worthwhile.
And I'm bidding against you.
That's right.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask. I just had a flood in my condo. Could I bring over all of my collection and just you guys just hold on to it for me for like 2 years while I fix my apartment?
Restore it.
Nothing needs restoration. I just need like a place for it to like just hang out for a little bit. Because I think I have like I have an original Star Wars print in the Academy. You guys are storing my print in your print collection, so I was hoping we could just kind of extend it. Maybe is that possible? No.
Unfortunately, we can only store things temporarily if they're going to be going on view for a specific show. But if you wanted to make a donation, we'd be very happy.
I'm not ready for the donation, but if you have any displays that are going up in the next like 3 weeks that you need some stuff for, you've got some holes. Yeah,
Dave, Nathalie would like to pass you over to her colleagues in the Herrick Library, and they can maybe speak to you.
They'll talk to you after. Yeah. Please leave the premises, sir.
This is totally great. This has been totally great. I really want to play the game. I'm like eager to play the game because we sort of talked about it a little bit offline, but I'm very eager because I think it like ties in really well. Or unless you had it.
No, I got to ask my question about will you take my collection and watch it for me?
I figured
that's the main reason we invited you on, Nathalie. It was just a shot in the dark.
That has been the end of the last 6 episodes, so I felt like you're just kind of asking for somebody to store your stuff. It feels like the bookend to our discussion.
We were gonna go. We were thinking Hitchcock because obviously we talked about the. I felt like it hit a couple of marks because obviously we talked about the backdrop and we talked about Hitchcock in general, and then also you mentioned British film, and obviously a large portion of his career starts in the UK. So I thought there's some overlap there, and also I don't know my Ealing comedies as well as I should, so I don't know if I could. The
Man in the White Suit.
That's true. The white suit from The Man in the White Suit. That would be something. That would be okay. And I guess maybe like Alec Guinness's sort of like teeth from The Lady Killers and his violin, maybe. So there's okay. I know my Ealing comedies better than I thought I did. But we were going to maybe play Hitchcock, and so I've got two, but I want to play differently. I want to play a little differently. Okay, so I'm shocking you with this. If you could, I'm backing up one little baby question, which is, do you in your own life collect anything, or do you have do you have movie memorabilia that you like, or even like little things that you have at home, like anything that you ever have like that, or you're not a collector of anything?
I'm not a collector.
Okay.
No, I'm always trying to get rid of things.
Those who don't collect curate or something like that is maybe the answer.
I think, so many people I know who work in this type of field are not collectors in their personal lives. Obviously some are, but a large number aren't. And I think we get to do that in our work life. So
Nathalie, you can also, I'll invite you to be a guest on next week's episode of the Caitlin Monahan and Becky Mandel podcast, Getting Rid of Shit.
Getting rid of everything.
It's their /
our wives murder my husband.
Run a whole very successful podcast for the displaced wives of collectors, where they therapeutically just throw things out on the pod. It's like a primal scream session for them. You can join them.
I was going to ask you for 2 answers, and they're 2 very. So I want to play the game of like sort of you and we don't have to pick one movie. Let's just go Hitchcock as a very broad topic if we can. So any Hitchcock movie, but I want you to pick 2 things. I want you to pick something you would put in your house, even though you're not a collector. Something you would love to just have in your house, and then tell me something you would want for the museum. Okay, does that make sense?
From the same film.
Yeah. Or nope. It can be 2 different items, can be 2 different films. I don't care. You can pick from the entire masterworks of Hitchcock. You can pick any 2 items. Doesn't have to be the same film. You pick anything you want. Something for the museum that would, allow you to tell a story, fill a hole, however you want to think about it. I don't care. And then one that you would actually go, yeah, I'd put that in my living room.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay, so for me, I would want something quite little.
Okay.
And I have thought about this before because I used to work at the British Film Institute, and in the paper collections there, we had like a press publicity piece for Notorious, and it had a little plastic key that like slotted into the fold out. And it was kind of amazing that those two pieces had stayed together as well.
I love that. Yeah.
But I always used to think about the key because it has such a significant role in the movie, the key to the wine cellar.
Yep.
It's the thing that Ingrid Bergman is holding in her hand when the crane like shot comes down from the long shot into the close-up. And I read the story about the AFI Hitchcock tribute where Ingrid Bergman had been given the key after production and she kept it all those years and she gave it back to Hitchcock. So that just has so much kind of richness to it. So it would be the key.
That's fantastic. That's a great answer.
And actually, I really recently found out that the Margaret Herrick Library has that key in the Hitchcock papers.
Oh, wow.
Oh, amazing.
So I immediately texted my colleague. I was like, is this true? Can I come and see it? So I'm going to go and see it next week and have my photo taken.
So when you find out something like that they have the key, not just obviously that you love it and are going to go and try and steal it, but also does your brain start going of like, okay, yeah, even if it's 6 years down the line, again, I don't know exactly how it works there, but do you start thinking to yourself, like, how do I get that key into one of these galleries, or what could we turn one of these galleries into? Is it time to do a Hitchcock thing? Like, is that, I guess, how, my idiot question, is that how museum works? Is that how, like, is that to some extent, like, the starts of things?
Yeah, I think so. Like you do something and you file that little nugget of information away in your brain, and then, the stars will align and you keep it all there and you store it up for future ideas. So yeah, that will definitely be something I'll be thinking about, how we could incorporate that at some point for sure.
Very, very cool. So so is the key the answer to both, or do you have a different answer for what you'd love to get for the museum?
Oh, well, I think it would have to be a different answer because
okay, good.
The key is already there in the library and being safely looked after. Another nice thing about the key actually as well is no conservation issues. I don't need to worry about that breaking apart over time. So is the perfect thing. Oh my God. Let me think. My brain is just running over everything else now. I'm thinking about the R embroidered pillows from Rebecca. They're quite fun. The China Cupid that gets broken. And that actually feeds into some stuff in our performance gallery as well. Alma actually was part of casting for the second Mrs. De Winter. And one of the actresses, they talk about being so frail that they could play the part of the Cupid that gets broken.
By the way, I'm just sorry, this has nothing to do with anything. There's one room in the gallery on casting, and it was so cool. Ryan, I'm just sorry, I'm just telling you things I got to see, but like literally it was like 4 different actresses reading for forgive me now, I'm not remembering, it was a big famous part, and it was like 4 different actresses, like just their auditions and then their screen tests and then the actual actress that got the part, and that was insane. It was so cool.
That's really cool.
That existed anyway.
That's
non-prop,
stuff,
but just amazing
film archives,
room in the thing.
Anyway, my brain has been running over all Hitchcock films, and the thing about Hitchcock is he's so great for like objects that have meaning and are very good in the plot. So I'm thinking about the Carlotta portrait in Vertigo or the bunch of flowers, but I think it would probably have to be James Stewart's camera from Rear Window.
It's so funny. I was thinking camera, or if the cast, because there had to be a cast that you could get in and out of. So I was thinking like the wheelchair and the cast or something, or even just the cast. But I was thinking camera also. I don't know if I'm thinking for the museum or for myself. I guess honestly for myself, I would love to see the cast and the wheelchair and the camera like in the museum. So if I'm getting something for the museum, I want to see that in the museum. The Carlotta painting from the gallery, I would, if I could hang that on my wall, I'd be the happiest man alive. I mean, I would bid on that in one of the auctions that I just saw upcoming and they're all bleeding together. So maybe it's the Julian's catalog. I don't know, Ryan, if you've looked through that, or Natalie, if you've looked through that. I took a quick
scan. Yeah,
there are some really nice Edith Head drawings, which is something I don't have in my collection. It's the Julian's one, but they've got a couple of Hitchcock movies. So they've got a couple of Kim Novaks from
There are
Vertigo,
2 Grace Kellys from
a couple
Rear
of
Window.
Grace Kellys from Rear Window, and I think there's also a couple of Grace Kellys from To Catch a Thief as well. So a bunch of Grace Kellys and a couple of Kim Novaks. I'm sure they're going to go insane, but I definitely was like, oh, those are really, really cool. And on the Grace Kelly, and certainly on the Kim Novak, a couple of like key outfits where you're like, oh, I remember, I remember that one. You remember that outfit, which is just kind of wild. So, but I guess if the mad Carlotta painting, the sad Carlotta painting, if I had to pick something for my wall, Ryan, for you, for the museum, and for yourself, or the same?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna go. I'm delighted and bummed because I was gonna say Jimmy Stewart's Camera from Rear Window, which is my favorite Hitchcock, and I love that. And it's the perfect piece because it's it's his whole story. It's why he's sitting there in the wheelchair, and it's also the way, it's in brilliant Hitchcock storytelling. It's also the device that saves him at the end from the killer, who is apparently based on David O. Selznick, because Hitchcock hated David O. Selznick, and the forget the actor's name, but he dressed and made him look, apparently at the time, so much like David O. Selznick that not only did all the movie industry people recognize him, but also like just moviegoers, because Selznick was such a well-known figure and person at that time that they read into. Yeah, it's in like
what's
the history.
His name? Who played what's his name? Perry Mason. Why can't I
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr. Yes, it's Raymond Burr. Yes.
Yep. And which I love. I just love that whole story. So that was my answer from Rear Window, but I'm going to go. So the thing that I would keep for myself, also love keys, also love MacGuffins. This isn't really a MacGuffin, but it's a Hitchcock object. Sticking with the key theme, the other movie that I love, which is a sort of a not lesser known, but a lesser talked about, is Dial M for Murder. And I just love the intricate sort of puzzle box nature of that movie. And it's a movie that it's wonderful because it only exists in that time. Like all modern technology obviates, Dial M for Murder. Dial M for Murder only exists in a place where you have latch keys and telephones, and so it would be the constant sort of hiding latch key, that one latch key that you're just seeing passed around the whole movie. And I think that would be a great one if you knew that it was the one from the movie. So that would be my little personal relic. The one that I would get for the museum, we talked a lot about this movie on the podcast, North by Northwest. The famous Cary Grant suit, like the suit, that is the suit of movie history. Right. It's been aped and replicated. James Bond wore it. I mean, everybody has done it, but Cary Grant, nobody wore a suit like Cary Grant. That suit, that gray suit from North by Northwest, that one just sort of presented in the museum. And that to me tells not only the whole story of like Hitchcock and North by Northwest, it tells the Cary Grant story, which in and of itself is like, I mean, there is no movie star. There has not been a movie star since Cary Grant that is equal to Cary Grant. Sorry, everybody, all movie stars, but it died with Cary Grant. So,
and there must be a few of them out there as well, so we could each have one.
Yeah, it has to be at least a duplicate. I was going to also say, and again, I don't know if this is enough for the museum, but something that had his initials, the ROT, the Roger O. Thornhill, the ROT, would be really kind of neat. Just like that would be a fun thing to have. Yeah.
Actually, the library have one of the matchbooks as well.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know if it was one that was like seen on screen or a replica, but
good, so good. Dave,
I did it. I did mine.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we've been round that
a different one.
Yeah, pick a new Hitchcock film. Go
From
back to
Lifeboat.
the silent.
I would like the ad that Hitchcock's on that floats by in the water. Yeah. And then
just Tallulah Bankhead, just in your house.
From the Trouble with
underwear
Harry, I would like, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm lowering the tone.
No, please. There is no. We set the bar very low here, Natalie. This has been amazing. Thank you. We've been
Natalie, this was incredible.
About
last chance, Natalie. Can I drop all my stuff off, please? Last chance.
No, but seriously, I would love to chat to you guys about what's in your collections. We maintain a database of, things that might be available to us for loans in the future.
Well, this is very interesting. If you would like to come over to my house and make a database, that could also be very helpful to me. Can I ask you this question? Actually, a very odd last question. Sorry.
Dave, why don't you just bring all your stuff by?
Yeah, I can just bring it by with a show.
But put it in a room. And then they could catalog it and archive it.
Did you guys design your own sort of database? Are you using sort of like a spread? Like, what are you keeping your records on? Like, is it something you've purchased or something you've kind of designed for your record keeping? I was just very curious about this sort of because I'm in the process.
We use a database that can accommodate all of the different types of object held across the Academy's collection, and then it gets kind of bespoked and modified to be even better for our users.
So categories and subcategories so that it can differentiate between something that is a 3D object or a poster or something like that. Gotcha.
Yeah, so you can have different data sets, and obviously for different types of object you need to record different information, and it can record, the movement of things, its location, it can do everything.
I would be thrilled to share with what I have. Certainly I would be happy to lend anything, obviously, at any time. I think that'd be really, really fun.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah. Last question before we go, and I think it's something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Do you guys at the Academy Museum ever think about sneaking downtown and setting a fire at the George Lucas Museum and sort of slowing them down or kind of really messing with their stuff? I know you've got a R2-D2 and a C-3PO, but like no one would know it was you guys. Fire breaks out on construction sites all the time. Just they lose another year or two, something like that. Give you a little more
like the opposing news teams and Anchorman, Dave, or is that what you're sort of thinking about?
I'm just wondering, are you
rumble
guys,
in the museum?
Is there going to be like softball games against them? Where is this all headed with the Lucas Museum? Like do you know them? Do you know those people? Okay, so you do. Okay.
We know them, and we're good friends with them. Someone who works there used to work.
No, you can tell us the truth. You can tell us the truth. You can tell us.
No, we're super excited about them opening, and we are actually, as you know, we've borrowed pieces from them, and
that's all going to end when they open. They're going to be like, they're going to be knocking on the door going, give us that stuff back. And you'll never hear from them again.
We need our droids.
Destroy them now while you can, Nathalie. That's my end thought for you. Destroy them now while you can, while they trust you. Destroy them. Okay.
Thank you, Nathalie. This has been amazing. We've literally been talking about this episode since, other than having George Lucas on the podcast, I think this is our longest running topic, but this we have actually accomplished.
I know.
We've done it.
We delayed it mainly because
Academy Museum.
Us two idiots it took this long for one of us to finally get to the museum.
One of us to go. Yeah. There was a pandemic in the middle that made things more difficult.
True. Harder.
But thank you so much, everybody. Go become members, donate to the museum. It's really it's a wonderful space, and I think
become members, but just go screenings, everything. Go see that. If you're in LA and you're visiting LA, you got to put that at the top of your list.
If you're a film fan at all, this is just something that we're so lucky to have, and have great people like Nathalie and passionate film fans behind it, because I think this is, it's really important in this stuff because of the nature of this art form. If it's not archived and cataloged and remembered, it gets lost to history. So it's really important that this stuff is going on, and I can't wait to go see it myself. I should be in LA in the next before the end of 2023, and my hope is to finally go and enjoy the museum myself. So thank you, and join us next week. In the meantime, subscribe, download us, rate us 5 stars,
follow us
write
on all
reviews,
social media at Props,
subscribe
podcast
to YouTube,
at everything. Follow us on YouTube, and by the way, you can follow the museum. You can follow the museum on Instagram, right? You can follow the museum on Instagram. They put up cool little pictures of things all the time, really interesting, neat stuff. You can sign up for their newsletters, but also subscribe and sign up for all our nonsense, and email us at
dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're a archivist that has connections to the Hitchcock family, the Academy Museum has plenty of Hitchcock stuff. Dave and I don't have any Hitchcock stuff.
If you have a Maltese Falcon, please just call us.
Please.
It'll be easier.
Thank you, Nathalie. And
thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you, fans. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.